Hi, welcome to Once Upon a Balance Sheet, Building Financially Impactful Teams and Culture. So people know me as James. This is my family name, Leong. My middle name is shortened to the letter C. My last name is pronounced as Foo. Whenever I give my name card to people, they will politely call out my name, Leong, C Foo. And it sounds exactly like this guy over here, this little guy, Master C Foo in Kung Fu Panda. So once upon a balance sheet, the numbers are telling a story. Do you agree? Now, some stories are happy ones, some are sad stories, and some look like they are horror stories when you look at their cash flow. So my mission through my teaching, my book, and my consulting is to help leaders build a transformative financial advantage. Not by chasing the latest trend or by cutting costs till it hurts, but through one of the most overlooked levers of sustainable growth, which is financial learning. The question I have for you here is, how well does everyone in your organization know how money works? Would it be very well? Would it be somewhat well? Or would it be they could know a lot better? Now, if the team doesn't know how money works, then they will not understand what drives business. And without their understanding, it will impact on their ability to make an impact. On the other hand, when, for example, ops teams understand how money flows, they are able to cut waste, and they are able to save cost. On the other hand, salespeople, when they understand how money works, then they might not be chasing volume at a loss and start protecting profits. So this is what I mean by a transformative financial advantage. Many organizations try to solve this problem, the money knowledge problem, by sending people to workshops. They learn to calculate a few ratios, learn to read a few reports. But that is only scratching just the surface. Do you want to stay on the surface, or do you want to go deep? Now, if you choose deep, congratulations, because this is where the real transformation begins. Because when you look beneath the surface, financial learning is not just about receiving new information. It is about building three things: superior performance, cash flow resilience, and empowered ownership. So the real goal is not just to teach knowledge. It is to help people to internalize it, is to help to shift their mindset and to help people to start thinking like owners. So this is where deep transformation happens. Now, you probably have heard of the phrase ownership mindset or growth mindset, or the usual buzzwords. So I'm not here to add another one to the list. I want to take it deeper with you. And I call it empowered ownership. Here's the thing. Ownership without empowerment is just pressure. You can ask someone to think or act like an owner if they don't have the right skills. There's plenty of research showing that employee engagement is still a major challenge globally across industries and sectors. And a large percentage of people are showing up and doing the work, but many don't feel connected to the bigger picture. They might be focused on the task, but not necessarily thinking, this business is mine to grow. And when we look at Gen Z, they're entering the workforce in bigger numbers each year. What's different with this generation is not just how they work, but what they work for. They want to grow, they want to contribute, and they want to know that their work makes a difference. And if they don't feel right, they'll look somewhere else. So just expecting people to show up with an ownership mindset is insufficient. We need to support them through learning. So this is where empowered ownership comes in. Organizations like the National Center for Employee Ownership have done interesting research, and they found that people develop real ownership when they have three key things. Influence. Influence is when people have a voice in what happens. And here's the thing, when we provide financial learning, we give them something even more powerful, a financial voice. In shaping what matters. Second, understanding, not just about how the business works, but how money works in a business, how it flows, and how everyday decisions affect margins, cash, and sustainability. And thirdly, control. That means they are trusted to take meaningful action. But here's what it means. How do you trust someone to make good financial decisions if they've never been trained to do that? You can't build ownership on hope. Capability builds trust, and financial learning makes that possible. So question here is, what do real owners do? They don't say that it is finance problem. They ask, how do I contribute to cash flow? How does my actions impact margins? And how do I keep this business strong and growing over time? So when people start asking those type of questions, you don't need to chase performance. They chase it themselves. They are not just completing tasks, they are driving outcomes. So here's the shift we are creating. Ownership without financial tools becomes pressure. Ownership without financial learning creates risk. But ownership with financial capability leads to transformation. And that's what we're here to build. And it is my belief that every results-focused leader deserves what I call the transformative financial advantage. And these are the three outcomes and deliverables of a transformative financial advantage. Over the years of analyzing businesses, I discovered that an organization could find themselves in one of these 4 stages. Surviving. The pressure never stops. Cash is tight, margins are thin, and every month feels like a struggle. And if you are here, it's not because you failed. Business is challenging, costs are rising, customers expect more, and competition is fierce. So C is for challenging. The next stage is striving. There is energy and some momentum. You see progress and small wins. Yet it feels like 2 steps forward and 1 step back. Encouraging but exhausting. So striving is like being on a treadmill. Lots of sweat, lots of movement, but you're not really going anywhere. Stable. Stable feels comfortable. Revenue comes in, cash is managed, the business has a steady rhythm. And it feels like you are cruising. Now, the hidden risk is the risk of good enough. People think that we are not in a crisis. So we are fine. We do not have to change. Now, this is where complacency creeps in. Take, for example, Nokia. At one point, Nokia controlled over 40% of the global phone market. But they underestimated the smartphone shift, and eventually their phone business was sold to Microsoft, which later wrote off the entire investment. The same thing happened to Kodak. The same thing happened to BlackBerry. When they clung on to the past, which worked well, instead of adapting to the present and the future. So that is the danger of the good enough. Stability can look safe, but in reality, it is the most dangerous place to be. Stable doesn't stay stable. The next stage is soaring. Now, this is where it gets exponential. There's cash surplus, growth multiplies. Think of today's market leaders. NVIDIA, Microsoft, Facebook, and Google. Their momentum comes not just from strategy, but from cultures where people take ownership and innovation compounds. Soaring doesn't come from being comfortable like stable. It comes from stretching into your full potential. So based on the thousands of businesses I've analyzed over my professional career, every business has 2 paths. Let's start in the middle. The amber zone. So this is a journey of a business through time. We start at the present. The amber zone, the middle path, looks flat and safe. You may have some ups and downs, perhaps more downs than up. But business is never static. So therefore, I am putting a cross through it. There's no staying the same. As we have already seen what happens when companies do that. Nokia, Kodak, BlackBerry, they all thought they could hold their ground in the good enough zone. But stable doesn't stay stable. Now let's take a look at the red line. The red line is where drift happens. Now drift is dangerous because it feels so gentle. Nobody wakes up and say, let's decline. No, it's one cost overrun here, one debtor slow to pay, one extra order of inventory ordered, stuck in the warehouse, draining cash, a wrong investment here, a missed opportunity there, and suddenly your financial position is in decline, in slow motion. The green line is different. This is where you advance. But here's the twist. There is another path. Advancement is good, but with the right financial learning, you do not just advance. You accelerate. So that's the dotted curve, the upward lift where financial learning shifts information to transformation. And that's exactly how I help businesses take the accelerated path. And this is journey of growth and accelerated growth. So how do we accelerate? This is the framework that I use in my training and consulting with leaders. And if you've ever decided to do this in-house to build a more financially impactful team and culture, this framework can guide the way for you as well. As you recall, a transformative financial advantage shows up as 3 outcomes: superior performance, cash flow resilience, and empowered ownership. So take a moment to pause and think, which one matters most for you right now? How do you get these outcomes? What are the levers that drive them? The lever that has the greatest impact on superior performance and empowered ownership is strategic engagement. And it's about moving the paradigm from silo to synergy. The levers that drive superior performance and cash flow resilience is being financially impactful. And it's more about moving from confusion to clarity. And the lever that drives cash flow resilience and empowered ownership is emotional investment. It's all about moving from indifference to initiative. Now, here's the hard truth. If you do not have strategic engagement, you have no breakthroughs. Because when teams stay in silos, performance suffers. And when people say, that's not my problem, that's finance problem, that's logistics problem, ownership disappears. And without it, real breakthroughs will not be attainable or sustainable. And if you do not have financially impactful, then you will have no edge. Because when people aren't clear on the numbers, it weakens performance and cash flow. And if you do not have emotional investment, you will have no commitment. Because when people don't care, they won't protect cash flow and they won't take ownership. That's why in our approach to this work, we use 9 key accelerators. 3 under each of these 3 levers. I won't go deep into them here, but notice they are the practical ways leaders can pull the levers and deliver superior performance, cash flow resilience, and empowered ownership. That's how you move from information to transformation. So that's the framework I use with leaders to accelerate performance, resilience, and ownership. But I also know leaders needed a resource they could keep returning to, one that makes financial learning stick. And that's why I wrote my book, Once Upon a Balance Sheet. To help leaders unlock one of the most overlooked levers of sustainable growth through financial learning. Not as a technical manual, but as a guide that makes finance clear, memorable, and even enjoyable. It is my belief that financial learning can be made simpler, deeper, actionable, and impactful. For the better part of my professional career, I've been driving this mission because I believed it can uplift people at every level. The individual, the family, the organization, and even society at large. Now, which word resonates most with you? Simpler, deeper, actionable, or impactful? The fact is, in my training and consulting with clients, I make sure financial learning hits all 4. And if you're ever planning your own internal training for your people, or bringing in an external consultant or trainer, this can be your checklist or your vendor evaluation criteria too. Simpler. People often tell me finance feels like a foreign language, and you just wish you had Google Translate for it. For more than 2 decades of training corporate executives across industries and countries, I've seen one barrier come up again and again. That is financial jargon. So on the other hand, in my work with ISCA, teaching effective finance business partnering workshops, finance professionals often share with me the biggest challenge in performing their role as a business partner is not the technical part. The biggest challenge is explaining things clearly to their non-finance colleagues. So this is business people on the one side, and this is finance people on the other side, separated by this barrier called financial jargon. So that's why finance has to be made simpler, and finance has to be explained in plain language. Next, deeper. Deeper so that people can understand what really drives performance. Some people think that when you make it too simple, you make it shallow. That's not true. Simple clears the noise so that we could go deeper and go beyond just the headlines and instead dive into what are the real drivers of performance and business success. Actionable, so that people can apply it in today's decisions. Over the years, so many participants tell me when they get finance reports, they don't read them because they don't know what it all means or how to use it beyond sales and profit. So actionable means they can take those numbers and help them to make today's decision that will shape tomorrow's results. Impactful. Impactful so that it changes the way people show up at work. In the end, learning finance isn't just about knowing more. It's about showing up differently. With more clarity in discussions, more confidence in decisions, and more conviction in the direction that you take. So that's when finance becomes truly impactful. So that is the shift that we need. The shift from information to transformation. Simpler, deeper, actionable, impactful. The book pedagogy is simple. It is story first. Why? Because stories stick. So we watch Netflix, we go to movies, people are hooked on Instagram stories. Character-led. Why? Because characters bring finance to life. And it's learner-centric, built so that anyone, regardless of background, can follow along and apply it. The book lives inside what I call the Financial Storyverse. I've created these characters so that each one comes with their own superpowers. Count jargon turns jargon into joy. Miss numbers turns numbers into narratives. And Steph, the analytical model, turns confusion into clarity. And Master C Foo, through his wisdom, turns figures into foresight. And what? Well, he needs no introduction. Why? Because during Chinese New Year, we already call his name. His superpower, he turns, which is a common finance expression by non-finance people when they have to deal with numbers, into hua, transforming perplexity into prosperity. So the Financial Storyverse is probably the happiest place to learn finance. And to make finance stick, I use visual anchors, simple, powerful images that you remember long after you put the book down. So over the years of training business leaders and non-finance leaders, I found that learning really sticks when it's anchored visually. I'm deeply honored by endorsements from leaders across business, academia, governance, board chairs have endorsed the book, CEOs, professors, directors. And the support reflects the need for a book like this and the impact it can bring. As Miss Numbers reminds us, learning finance doesn't have to be a struggle. Her role is to make knowledge acquisition enjoyable and to lower learning barriers so that many people, when they feel challenges in learning finance, they can overcome those barriers because it is made easy for them to understand, to digest, to internalize, and to absorb. And that's why our tagline is, we make finance seriously fun. Because finance can be serious in impact, but fun in learning. So if you only remember one thing, let it be this. Your numbers are already telling a story. Would it be a story of decline, or would it be a story of growth? Every business has two paths. You can drift on the red line, or you can move forward on the green line. Or you could take the dotted green curve. That's the accelerated path of superior performance, cash flow resilience, and empowered ownership. It's the path I've built into my work with leaders and the path I've written into Once Upon a Balance Sheet. If today's session has sparked something for you, I love to continue this conversation. Whether it is through my book, a workshop with a team, or a keynote at your next event, I'll be delighted to partner you to build a financially impactful team and culture, and to deliver a transformative financial advantage for your organization. Thank you so much for your time today.